Welcome to the Triage Method Podcast Q&A edition with me, Gary McGowan. I'm a co-host, Mr. Patrick Farrell. This week's Q&A episode is going to be on basically simplifying your choices. So basically, like you may have heard of this kind of phenomenon before of the paradox of choice, people call it. Or you may have heard of things like decision fatigue in the psychology literature. Like, ignore that, wouldn't put too much weight in that. Realistically, do you get tired from making decisions and you're not able to make another decision if you really need to? No, like that's obviously not the case. If you have to choose between your favorite food and a food that you hate, you're still going to be able to make it. So decision fatigue is not necessarily something that you need to sweat. However, this kind of paradox of choice, or the effects of having too many choices available to you, is something that you really need to think about when it comes to training and nutrition. And it can actually really affect the way that we talk about evidence-based training and nutrition decisions even. So let me give you some examples to kind of put this into context. So like at the moment, right, a lot of you are at home. Okay. A lot of people who do not work in essential careers are at home as a result of, not essential careers, essential jobs for the
Government
moment.
marked essential careers.
Government marked essential careers for the moment. So a lot of you are going to be working from home. You probably have more time available to cook your meals. And there's probably a little bit more, decision making going into it. It's like, you and your partner, you're debating for 15, 20 minutes. Oh, what are we going to have? Will we have steak? Or will we have chicken? Or will we have salmon? And will we put Cajun on it? Or will we go for Italian seasoning and all this sort of stuff? And if you have those sorts of decisions in your life every single day, it can be pretty tiring. But not only that, it can lead to sometimes poorer choices, and it can lead to you just wasting a shitload of time. Okay. So what you want to try and do as best as you can is simplify your life to a certain point. Simplify your decisions to a certain point. So, like when it comes to simplifying your decision making, you clearly can't just make everything, you can't put everything on autopilot, right? If you have to make a really important decision, or you have to cook a meal because you have your family coming around and you haven't seen them in months. So it's at the end of Corona. It's at the end of Corona. In like 4 years time, you've seen your family for the first time in 4 years.
That's more like it.
And they're coming over. So you have to cook a meal. Justified that you would put more thought into that. But getting up in the morning, man, don't have a 15-20 minute decision about what you're going to have for breakfast. Okay. This actually messes up people's diets more than they realize. They sweat it too much. And where this actually really crops up, which is funny enough because they're the people who call themselves flexible and they have freedom, is the people who are really into if it fits your macros. So really into just fitting any foods they want into their diet and only having macros as the basis of diet, or only having calories as the basis of diet. Do at each meal, and I've been there, I've done this, is you're deciding, oh, what can I fit in? How many calories in this? How many fats in that? How many calories? Like, what could I fit in? I might regret it. And sometimes what happens is they'll have a meal that isn't that enjoyable, and they're like, oh, well, that didn't really hit the spot. Now I'm going to have something else. And it's like you just fucked it. So when you wake up in the morning, something that I do is I've had, like at the moment, I don't really have breakfast. Well, I obviously have breakfast, but I don't have it when I wake up. I don't have it at the moment. So when I wake up in the morning, I just have boom, think, let's get to work. Let's do some reading or whatever I happen to be doing in the morning. That simplifies my morning. There's no time wasted, because if you make a 20 to 30 minute decision before each meal, like you've got an hour and a half of your day gone. Like, are you serious? Not to mention that you then like weigh that up as being a more important decision than it actually is. If I am having breakfast or my first meal of the day, it's porridge, berries, whey protein, dark chocolate, boom. And it's been like that for years, like literally years. That's pretty much been it. Like sometimes on the weekend, a bit more time, some eggs. Yesterday, some eggs scrambled with peppers and chorizo on some
You
bread.
want heart disease.
I know. And yeah, so like basically what I'm saying there is the way that I set things up is so that I don't have to make those decisions in the morning, that it's just habit. It's just routine. It's just a case of getting it done. Because if you start to put a lot of weight into these decisions and you really start to overthink them, like not only are you wasting time thinking, but it leads to you changing things more often than not, and it can potentially lead to worse outcomes. So the nutrition one is very obvious because, you know, if you're constantly overthinking all of your meals, nutrition is way more of a stressor than it needs to be. Like just eat, like just get it done, just eat, like get out of the kitchen again and get back to work or doing whatever is important. Like obviously some people care more about food, and that's fine. But when it comes to training, it's also quite important because especially at times like this, when people are outside the gym, they'll stress so much over making the perfect decision as to like what their workout should be. You know, oh, have I trained my rear delts enough? Oh no, I didn't have enough hamstring work in this program. Like, don't sweat that stuff. Like, just get your training done. And obviously, depending on the extent of your goals, you can't always think like that. But if you're constantly overthinking, all right, what exactly should my program be? This doesn't seem to be perfect. Is there enough sets for this? You know, is that the right tempo? Like, don't sweat that stuff too much, because it can again lead to you potentially skipping training because you spend so much time thinking about it, or potentially changing things all of the time, and not getting the priority work done. So simplify your choices there. And like, this is something that comes up a lot in the science-based discussions, where if you're constantly worried about like what the perfect workout is, you don't have consistency. So you're actually missing out on results as a result of that. Because, for example, you could make the case that having a hack squat with reverse bands and different leg press variations and leg extensions, etc., that all that stuff might lead to the optimal leg workout. But you could be spending so much time chopping and changing between that stuff, not getting it done because you weren't at the right gym, or coronavirus comes and you don't have access to machines anymore. Like, all those variables could potentially put you behind the person who's just been doing a front squat for the last 5 years. Like, that's it. And like, they've nailed their technique so well. Like, it's literally ingrained. It's perfect. They know exactly what 80% of the 1 rep max is on average. They know exactly how many reps they can do at a given exercise or in a given intensity range. Nailed. It's squared away. It's consistent. There's no thinking. They know exactly what they're going to do when they come in. The skill is developed, and it's all additional strength and muscle from here. So personally, that's something that has kind of come into my thought process a lot more over the last couple of years, is, right, how can I simplify my decision making so that I'm just moving in the right direction as opposed to being perfect. And there's a good phrase like, don't let perfection be the enemy of the good, or good enough. Because like, realistically, most of us need to get to that level where we're doing 70, 80, 90, 95% of things right. But sometimes chasing that last couple of percent can just lead to such a disproportionate amount of time and effort invested that it actually ends up taking away from your life. So when you wake up tomorrow morning, if you normally spend 30 minutes deciding what to have for breakfast, and when you're eating it, you're evaluating it, and afterwards you're thinking, oh, did I track that right? Like, you'd actually be so much better off to just have the same thing every day. Might seem boring, but that extra element of simplifying your life can actually give you so much back. So I've been talking for a while. Is what I'm saying clear? Is this relatable?
100%. And also, I just think you should point out on it that this doesn't mean that you just have to eat the same thing every single day, or
No.
extremely simplify your training down. It's more so, have a few, in the meals example, have a few staple meals where it's like, okay, you know roughly how to cook them, how you'd season them, how to track them, you know the rough calorie macronutrient breakdown of them. And it's like, just cycle between those, rather than every single day being like, oh well, maybe I had that muffin earlier on, and now I have to change my how much carbs I have before my workout here. And like, it's day to day is just extremely variable. There's no consistency, there's no guiding structure. And again, it's not decision fatigue, because I'm going to say it's made up,
Yeah.
but it is that kind of like paradox of choice, where you are making a lot of choices, and the more choices you give yourself, the more you're kind of like, let me sit down here and think about which one of these is the best choice. Because again, like, no one wants to miss out. No one wants to, if I should say, this is most clearly seen in two aspects. One, when you go to a restaurant and you're given a menu, and you've never been to the restaurant before, and you're like, maybe they have pictures of the meals beside, and you're looking through and you're like, oh, that looks nice. And you're like, oh, but that looks nice. And well, that one looks nice. And that one looks nice. And you're kind of like, there's like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different things. You're like, oh, they all look really nice. Like, what am I going to eat? You know, maybe it's sushi and you've never eaten sushi before, but you're like, oh, like, well, these all look nice. I don't know what to choose. And you're kind of left making a longer choice, like making a longer decision time, because you don't want to choose incorrectly, you know. Or again, like you see it as well when, you know, you're doing you go to a restaurant and you've been to it before, and you know there's like 5 or 6 different meals that you're like, oh, they're really tasty meals, and you're kind of like, oh, I could have any of them right now. Like, you know, you're like, what do I want? Or again, the classic example is always the ice cream parlor. You go in and it's like they have 200 different flavors, and you're like, oh, should I get the chocolate mint there, or should I get the cookies and cream there? Or, you know, like there's so many choices that you're kind of like, oh, like I want to kind of try all of them, you know. Or you're like, there's 5 or 6 flavors. That one looks nice. That one looks nice. Which one should I choose? And people, you know, spend ages agonizing over what choice to make. Whereas if you go into the ice cream parlor and it's like, yeah, we have chocolate, vanilla, and chocolate mint, you're just like, all right, I know what one I'm going to get, you know, which is chocolate mint, because it's the master of all of them. But anyway,
absolutely not. That's incorrect, but I'll allow it.
Anyway, but you go in there and you're like, you 3 choices, and all of a sudden you're like, all right, this is handy. Decision made, over, done, you know. You just literally shaved off 15 minutes, or you gain back 15 minutes to your life, you know, by them having less choices available to you, you know. And this also, again, applies to your life. If you go, I have these choices available to me because I know that for my breakfast and lunch, or my first 2 meals of the day, I'm like, I have a certain amount of foods that I rotate through, you know, or meals that I rotate through. I'm like, these are a few breakfast ideas. These are a few lunch ideas. I just pick whichever one. And there's no, you have like 3 different options. You're like, that's what I want today, you know, rather than being like, all right, here's 400,000 different options that I could potentially choose from. You know, like people do that where they'll literally do their shopping every single day. Maybe they live beside, like personal trainers as well are really bad for this, because they have a more variable and open middle of the day, because generally they work in the morning and the evening. So they have the whole middle of the day to like cook their meals and do whatever, you know. So they'll literally just do their shopping every single day. So maybe work beside a Super Value, a Tesco, or whatever, and like, yeah, I'll just pop in and get food there every single day, you know, and then cook it. So they literally have to make a choice every single day from complete scratch, not just like, oh, well, we bought chicken and mince, so we have to use one of them today because I defrosted it. You know, it's like there's none of that. It's like I literally have 400,000 choices available to me every single day because I'm doing the shopping every single day, you know. So that having a fewer choices does actually make things easier, even though you would assume having more choice makes things easier. And obviously that's not a complete and accurate depiction of the world, but it's much easier to make a choice between fewer options than it is to make a choice between a multitude of options and then risk the kind of thought process of, oh, I'm missing out, you know. And how that applies to your daily life, it just means you need to have structure in your training program. Like when you're going to exercise, you need to have structure in, you know, your diet protocols. You need to have structure in the choices that you make every single day. There needs to be some structure in place, or at the very least a guiding principle, because people have guiding principles but they just don't realize them. They've never verbalized them. They've never like written them down. It's like, how do you actually make choices? And they're like, I don't know, my monkey brain tells me, you know, to make this choice. And like that's fine to a point, like between like, you know, irrelevant choices. Like, I don't care if your monkey brain tells you that fucking chocolate fudge is the best ice cream flavor when it is clearly mint chocolate. Like it doesn't matter. It's such an irrelevant choice, you know. But then you start getting into like deeper choices, you know, like, I don't know, ethical, moral choices, political choices, economic choices. And like, these choices actually impact people's lives and the lives of generations to come, you know. And people are like, I don't know, I don't have any choice making apparatus. I just do whatever my monkey brain tells me, you know. And like that's fine, again, until it's not fine. You know? So I always like getting people to not, well, write down is a good way to do it, but come up with some guiding principles. Like obviously we coach nutrition and training. I'm not doing this for their fucking morals and ethics, but I'm like, let's write down some guiding principles, like your meals. What makes a good meal for you, and then it might be like, oh, I want tasty meals, and I'm like, okay, what does tasty mean for you? Like, what does that actually mean? Like, tasty is an irrelevant word. Like, feelings don't translate through words, So, like, if I say I'm feeling sad, like, we all pretend we know what that means, because you felt a feeling that you have called sad, but that is completely irrelevant to me, because those two feelings could be completely different, and my happiness could be fucking magnitudes better than your happiness, and we don't know. I can never feel what you can feel. And this is also applies to like exercise and stuff, because if I say, oh, do this move here and it stretches your hamstring, and you do it and you're like, I'm feeling nothing. We just use the word feeling there, So like feelings, even if it's bodily feelings, they don't translate well across different people. You can't just be like, this move makes you feel this, because it simply might not, And the same with like, the actual feelings of the emotions that we feel, so if you are writing down your guiding principles, you actually have to be very clear in what you mean. So if you say something like, oh, that's tasty, what, define that for me. Tell me exactly what's tasty for you. Again, depending on your culture, your upbringing, whatever, that might mean like, I don't know, spicy food, it might mean salty food, it might, whatever it means for you as an individual, like that should be defined. Even if you don't write it down, it should be defined in your head, because if you have a definitive guiding principle, then you can make choices much, much quicker, much more easily, because you're like, all right, my guiding principle is, tasty is salty. I'm just obviously fucking bringing that really, really far down. It's salty. That's my guiding principle. I just fucking love things that are salty. That's tasty to me. Like, you could give me fucking cardboard, and as long as it's salted, it's fucking tasty. That could be you. I don't care. So if you're then presented with 3, 4, 5 different choices, rather than agonizing over them, you can just be like, all right, which one is the saltiest tasting? Like, it's that one. Cool. Now I've made my decision. I already had a guiding principle. It's done. Now, obviously, that's a completely simplified approach to it. But if you actually have guiding principles for your training, have guiding principles for your nutrition, and probably your morals and ethics, that would be great as well. But if you have them and they're clearly defined, and you can, explain to someone what a tasty meal is, all of a sudden you're able to make choices. Like, people do this in relationships all the time, where they will go out for dinner and they'll end up having an argument about where they should go, because she'll say or he'll say, be like, oh, I don't really care where we go. And then the other person will be like, all right, let's go here. And they're like, oh, I don't want to go there. You're like, you just said you don't care. Like, that's like, you know what I mean? It's like, that's, you clearly do care enough, because you don't want to go here. So can you just give me the list of options of where you do want to go or where you don't want to go? And we'll choose between them. But because the person has no clearly defined, this is the exact criteria, this is my guiding principle, because they don't have that, all of a sudden it's like, all right, one or the other is like, I'm just supposed to guess and be right in my guess, so having some sort of guiding criteria that allows you to make your decisions that you can then communicate with other people, it makes life so much easier. And that's not to say that you have to live and die by these choices that you made once. They can be updated, and obviously they can change. Some days you might be like, yeah, I fucking love salty food, I really want that. And other days you're like, no, spicy, that's what I want. Like, that's fine. You can have preferences and they can change day to day, but there should be some sort of guiding criteria, structure, that you can then allow bleed into your overall diet structure, training structure, life structure. Once you have those guiding principles, it makes structuring things so much easier. And as a result, it makes reducing your choices down, like actually making choices, so much easier.
Yeah. And obviously, like, this is one of those things as well where, like, your own individual personality does come into it, because I'd say, like, realistically, both of us are probably a little bit more conservative in the way that we live our lives and maybe some of our beliefs. But like if you're like, for example, you could be like a really conservative person and you're just like yeah, all I want is a good meal, you know, and you don't have much like openness to experience is just some you're just like, nah, but don't really give a shit about that, to be honest. I just want a good meal. When you're abroad, you could just literally just be like, is there a McDonald's? Oh, there's a McDonald's. Cool. Well, I know McDonald's is going to be nice. Boom. That's reliable. That's done. That's squared away. That's my meal. Cheap, tasty, done. Simple. Simplified life. But you could be someone that's like openness to experience is just your thing. You go to a new country, you want to fucking eat snails shoved into a kangaroo's testicle. Like that is literally what you want to eat. You want to have it boiled in urine. You know, that's just your thing. Oh, yeah, you might actually have to think loads about that because you want to find the most open experiences that you could possibly come across. So obviously, like that's the thing with decision making is that you can't necessarily tell you exactly how to make decisions, even if you're trying to be like hyper rational about everything. Like sometimes your monkey brain is better at making decisions than you trying to be overly rational. So yeah, look, you don't have to make decisions exactly how we make them. But what I would say is that simplifying your life in terms of like your day-to-day stuff, like the real basic stuff, because having breakfast every morning in your own home is very different to having a meal in, I don't know, India or Pakistan or somewhere that you happen to be abroad that's going to have different food and different culture to you. Like, of course, you can broaden your horizons then, but the day-to-day stuff, when you're going doing your food shopping, you're cooking your breakfast and your lunch each day, you're cooking your dinner each day, like simplify that stuff, because realistically, like breakfast in the morning when you have 15 minutes before work, it's not the time for that many new experiences, you know. Have your fucking porridge, have your eggs, get it done, you know. And obviously like this goes beyond just like training, nutrition. It goes into the realm of like setting up your life in general. Like when you get up in the morning, don't be like, oh, what am I going to do today? You know, that's fine if you're like, I think like that's what I want to be like when I'm like maybe like 50, you know, you've made your money, you kind of know exactly where your life is. You're
50.
introducing a little bit more.
50. That'll be you when you're
Well,
150. We're fucking taking over this fucking place. We're going to be working in triage for the next fucking 200 years.
yeah, but you know, you might be working from like noon until midnight or something, and when you wake up in the morning, you're like, oh, I have a little bit of freedom here. So once you're done your kind of investment grindy phase of your life, you're introducing a bit more leisure. When you're 150, then you might have the option to just, you know, be a bit more free. But when you wake up in the morning and you know that you have a load of shit to do, like know what you're gonna do first. Like don't wake up and be like, scroll Instagram for 2 hours. When am I going to go to the gym? Oh, I wonder when I'll eat and what I'll eat. Like if you have all those decisions on your mind, you can be sure that your day is just going to go to shit, because we all have stuff that we need to do. So like if you know that like you rarely get your training done when you leave it to the evening, make that a morning routine. When I get up in the morning, I drink water, I put on my shoes, I go to the gym. Boom. Because it does come back to that whole thing that like we've obviously repeated many a time, but like Jocko Willing's phrase of like discipline equals freedom. Like if you want to have, you never heard of her, no? Yeah, she's actually a singer, yeah.
Oh, you're thinking of
La-
Chiquita. Yeah.
Chiquina Vilink. But yeah, basically like if you apply that framework of like discipline equals freedom, that's how you get more free time, and that's how you get more flexibility. It's not by like just thinking about it, overthinking everything and be like, when am I going to do that? And yeah, oh, actually I might go for a walk, and oh, I'll go on Instagram for a while, because that's how you end up taking 4 to 6 hours of work or tasks and expanding them out to 12 hours, so that you never actually have any free time. You never have any time to do the things that you want to be able to do. So if you know that in the morning I wake up, I train, I come back, I have emails, get them done, come back, boom, I have to cook my meals for the day, get that done, and then you have free time rather than just like dispersing it across the day. It just makes life way easier.
You're dead right. And I have nothing else to say on this whole discussion. Do you?
Nope, me neither.
So where can people find us?
As always, you can subscribe to the Triage Method newsletter. In that newsletter, you'll find a number of recommended resources along with the week, as well as an exclusive article on a particular topic. You can also join the Triage Method community. That's our free Facebook group. That's also linked below. And that basically includes all of the people that are supportive of our business and ventures and thoughts, and maybe people that hate us as well, like probably like keeping an eye, being like, what are these fuckers doing? Get into that Facebook group, chat with us, slag us, troll us, share other podcasts or things that you think other people might be interested in, ask questions, interact with the posts that we're posting. That's a good place to get involved. Of course, you can follow us on all media. YouTube is a good one because we are posting a good bit of content there. The podcasts also go up there. So if you haven't seen my totalitarian tash, then you are missing out. And Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. And if you'd like to get involved with our services, then we do have one-to-one and group online coaching spaces available, and also have our beginner's guidebook and program templates that are available if you happen to be interested.
Dead right. I don't think that's to add. So I'm going to wrap it up here and say again, it is too easy.
It's too easy.